Hey guys, it's Coaster Nerd Weekly. Today's video is going to be my top 10 favorite roller coasters of 2022. So lots of people love to rank the roller coasters they've ridden. Sometimes in top 25s, sometimes in top 15s, but I personally think 10 is the best number to rank coasters. So in today's video, I will be doing just that. Make sure to like and subscribe because it helps out a lot with the channel. Anyway, let's get into the video. Just a quick disclaimer before the rankings start. As you may know, I've been to Cedar Point and have ridden Millennium Force, Maverick, Steel Vengeance, and other rides. Millennium Force, Maverick, and Steel Vengeance would probably be on this list. However, I've only ridden each of these coasters once, so I feel like if I have only ridden a coaster once, I can't really rank it. So hopefully I'll be getting back to these coasters soon so I can ride them more times and rank them. Okay, disclaimer aside, let's get into the rankings. Starting off the list at number 10, we have Cornball Express, a CCI Woody that opened in 2001 at Indiana Beach, one of my two home parks. And this coaster isn't as high as it used to be on the list, but that is a combination of riding more rides, but also, sadly, the fact that I'm getting a bit bored of this ride. This is most likely the coaster I've ridden the most in my life, so it's understandable. But enough negativity. Despite dropping in my rankings, I still think this ride is amazing. It has some really strong floater elements, and of course, the surprise Flowjector hill next to Tigger that makes you feel like you're going to be launched into those random support things. This ride, like all rides, well, most rides at Indiana Beach, is basically always a station mode, so you can just marathon it if you want. It's also very smooth for a wooden coaster of its age. In the number 9 spot, we have Top Thrill Dragster, an intimate strata coaster that opened in 2003 at Cedar Point. One of the few rides at Cedar Point I was able to get more than one ride on. This ride is only 17 seconds, but in those 17 seconds is an amazing coaster. First of all, I love the subtle theming on the ride, like how there's the lights that go green and the engine sounds when you sit at the launch track and the finish flag at the end. It just really adds to the ride in my opinion. Then you have the launch to 120 miles per hour in like 2.8 seconds or something crazy like that. And this launch is extremely forceful and fun. Then you go into the top hat where you get some good airtime and an amazing view, but you do not get to take in that view for long, because then you go into what I think is the most underrated part of the ride, which is the spiral drop. Most people say it'd be better if it just twisted 90 degrees, but I personally like this drop. Overall, a great ride for how short it is. Coming in at number 8 is Mystic Timbers, a GCI Woody that opened in 2017 at Kings Island. This is another coaster that dropped in my rankings, but it has dropped a lot more. This coaster actually used to be at number 4, but unlike Cornball, this ride has dropped due to my most recent rides on it not being very good. The last few rides I've gone on this ride were just kind of mediocre. I rank coasters by how it was running averagely in the last year's open, so it's not as low as it could be. Negativity aside, this coaster usually runs great with 16 airtime moments that usually all give you great pops of airtime. Another thing I love about this ride is the theming and the storyline given to it, especially the shed, which is very underrated in my opinion. A lot of people don't like it because they thought it was going to be some kind of cool element, and then they were disappointed because it's just screens and sound effects, but I actually really like it. I think it's a really good piece of theming. I also love the soundtrack with this ride, and I hope Cedar Point continues to work with Imascore in the near future, because they did a very good job about this one, and a good job with the Orion soundtrack. Overall, a great ride most of the time. Hopefully I'll be able to get some better rides on it this year. At number 7 was another coaster I was able to get multiple rides on at Cedar Point, Magnum XL 200, an aero hyper coaster that opened in 1989. This is an amazing ride in my opinion, but it's also a very polarizing coaster. Some people think it's too rough and janky, but I personally love the jankiness of the ride, and I don't really think it's rough. I just think it's a great ride in general. In the first half, you get some cool floater on those graceful hills, and then the turnaround is also pretty enjoyable. In the second half, you have a few triangle hills that absolutely yeet you out of your seat. This ride also has a lot of tunnels, and if you didn't know, I love tunnels on roller coasters. This ride also barely ever has lines, which is really great because most of the coasters at Cedar Point usually have a super long wait time. This ride also has some pretty cool subtle theming, but I especially love the station music. It's retro 80s synthesizer music, which I really like. I found this music on YouTube, and now I just randomly listen to it sometimes. It's that good. Overall, a great ride with a graceful first half and a super aggressive second half. At number 6 is Lightning Run, a Chance Rides Hyper GTX coaster located at Kentucky Kingdom. That is until summer 2022, the only ride of its kind. A lot of people say this is the miniature version of Magnum XL 200, and now that I've ridden both, I can definitely agree with this. However, I do think that Lightning Run is a bit better, but I haven't ridden Lightning Run since 2019, so I might need to get on it again. Since it's been 2 years since I've ridden this coaster, I don't remember it super well, but I can remember it was a great ride with some strong, intense ejector. I also remember it having very short lines, like all the coasters in Kentucky Kingdom when I went. Basically, this ride felt like if RMC hybrids were full steel coasters, which makes sense because it was designed by some people in RMC. It was definitely a crazy ride, and hopefully I can get back on it soon. For now, all I remember is the great airtime and smooth ride experience. Starting off the top 5 is Orion, a B&M Giga coaster. Yes, it is a Giga at Kings Island. This coaster has had the biggest jump in quality in 1 year that I've ever seen. In 2020, Orion was kind of disappointing. It had good speed and some good airtime on the speed hill, but that was about it. Then in 2021, suddenly there's airtime where you never expect airtime to be, and the ride just felt faster and better. This ride now has some good floater off the drop, and the drop is apparently steeper than Fury's. I'm not sure if that's true, but the drop is really good. It's kind of like the Millennium Force drop where it feels like it lasts longer than it actually does. Then you go into a supersized waves turn, which gives some good floater airtime as well. Then you go into a cool turnaround, which goes into the awesome speed hill. You get a mix of ejector and also laterals for some reason. Then you go into a camelback hill, which gives good floater. It does have a trim, but the trim doesn't really kick in very hard. Then you do a pretty forceful helix, which on a hot summer day usually makes me gray out. Then you go into the best part of the ride, which is like a weird off-axis airtime turn thing, which just absolutely ejects you out of your seat if you're in the back. You then pop into the brakes. So I think this ride is really good, and I definitely recommend it. However, it does seem like it's missing 1 or 2 elements, but I still think it's really good for what it is. At number 4 is the only RMC iBox coaster that's not a hybrid, Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. This ride, along with Lightning Run, gives Kentucky Kingdom by far my favorite 1-2 punch, both giving awesome ejector airtime. Once again, I don't remember too much about this ride because I rode it kind of a long time ago, but I do remember it also being the station weight like Lightning Run, so I got to ride it like 5 or 6 times. I remember that the barrel rail drop was really cool, definitely one of my favorite drops, and the rest of the ride is just absolutely crazy ejector airtime. I also enjoyed the overbanked turns, and that quote-unquote fear helix was kind of weird, but still fun. If you watch a POV of Storm Chaser, you'll see it crawl through that helix into the brakes. But a POV does not do this ride justice. This coaster just hauls through the entire ride and is overall a crazy experience. I hope to get back to Kentucky Kingdom again, and ride Storm Chaser and Lightning Run again. Receiving the bronze medal is what I consider the perfect roller coaster, Diamondback, a B&M hypercoaster at Kings Island. Now I know it sounds weird that what I call the perfect coaster isn't my number 1 coaster. That's just because I find it to be the perfect coaster considering what I prefer in coasters, but my number 1 coaster would be a ride that does so many things I like, but I could still have a complaint about it. My number 1 coaster is the ride I enjoy the most, but I find Diamondback to be a coaster that I have no complaints about. This ride has the best floater airtime that I've ever experienced on a coaster, and I almost prefer floater airtime to ejector. Diamondback actually has a mix between ejector and flow ejector. Every hill, you get ejected what feels about a foot out of your seat, but then you stay out of your seat for like 3 or 4 seconds straight, and this happens 5 times on the ride. And you also get awesome airtime coming out of the drop, mid-course brake run, and a drop into the splashdown. There's also a helix in the middle of the ride that I gray out on half the time. It's pretty intense. And a fun lateral filled helix near the end of the ride. Then you end off with an awesome splashdown. And if you sit in the back, which is the best seat in my opinion, you can lean to the side and get splashed by the water, which feels great on a hot summer day. Overall, I love this ride. In fact, I'm kind of obsessed with it to be honest. And I have to make sure to ride it every time I go to Kings Island. Taking the silver medal is Lightning Rod, an RMC part topper track, part iBox track launched coaster at Dollywood. The last time I rode Lightning Rod was right before most of the track was replaced, so I'm not sure if it's better or worse with a new track, but I know that at least with the old track it was an insane ride. First of all, there's some nice theming in the queue and station. The entrance has a nice themed area around it. The line can range from a station wait to 2.5 hours based on my 5 trips to Dollywood, so not very consistent wait times. The ride experience itself is amazing, starting off with an awesome 45 miles per hour launch. Then you go through a wave turn, some snappy ejector moments, and then of course the legendary quad down. One of the most amazing groups of airtime hills ever. Then you go into the brakes with what they call a half loop, basically just a weird turnaround, but it's still fun and pretty snappy. This ride is a little short, but for its length, it packs in an amazing punch. One problem a lot of people have with this ride is its constant downtime, but I've heard that with the new track it's not down as much, so that's good. This new track is one of the many excuses for me to go back to Dollywood, so I'll have to make sure to visit soon again to get on this ride and all the other amazing rides at Dollywood. In the number 1 spot, taking the gold medal, my favorite coaster at this time, Voyage, a Gravity Group Woody at Holiday World. This coaster actually used to be behind Lightning Rod, but I recently got on it again and it took over the spot. Maybe if I get back on Lightning Rod, they'll switch again. Anyways, Voyage is just amazing. I like the subtle theming it has to the voyage on the Mayflower, and I appreciated it even more when I most recently went, because at the time we were learning about the Pilgrims and their voyages at school. This ride has awesome ejector all over the place. It is one of the few coasters that I've been on that feels like it's long enough. And it is a long ride. It's in the top 10 longest coasters in the world. First half of the ride has cool floater and some twists in the woods. Then you hit the mid-course, which does slow you down a bit, but then you go into the best part of the ride, the triple down. This triple down takes place in a tunnel, which makes it even better. Then you somehow just pick up all of your speed again and fly through the rest of the ride, getting really good ejector on all the hills. This ride also has some cool 90-degree banked turns and a lot of tunnels. Now that I said earlier, I love tunnels on coasters. The only complaint that I have with Voyage is the restraints. They kind of close down on you kind of tight during the ride, which does ruin the airtime a bit, but it's still a really good ride. I've never been to Hollywood Nights, so I'm not sure how it runs during that event with the trims off, but I know that is considered one of the best coaster experiences in the world. I've heard that it hauls even faster through the second half, and I can't imagine how good that would be, considering how good it already does go. I go to Holiday World every year, so I'm excited to get back on Voyage again this year and experience this amazing ride again. Overall, 2021 was a great year for me in terms of new credits. There are only 2 new coasters on this list that were new credits, but there would be more if I was able to get more rides on Millennium Force, Steel Vengeance, and Maverick. But I think these rankings are a lot better than my last rankings. My rankings for 2021 didn't make that much sense. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time on Coaster Nerd Weekly.